and he was able to repent and be able to receive Jesus as his Lord and
Wow.
Savior and pray for him. So that was also a shift that
Wow.
happened,
Wow.
just to witness that God is also after his sons and
Yeah.
not just his daughters that are in this industry, but be able to experience his love and his redemption and full
Yeah.
restoration, that God can do all things new when we say yes to him.
Hi, you're listening to Java with Jen with your host, Jenna Lee Samuel. On this show, I bring the simplicity of hearing God's voice into everyday life in a no nonsense, authentic, and super practical way. With coffee in hand and real life in our faces, let's do this. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode here at Java with Jen. I have an exciting guest with me today who I had the privilege of meeting just back in August, and we have already traveled twice together. Well, actually, I traveled once and then stayed with her, and then she traveled with me to DC, the Million Women March that I have been talking about on social media. If you're following, I've been sharing about our experience a little bit. If you heard the episode yesterday, I interviewed when this is aired, it will have been yesterday. I interviewed Laura Allred. She was Lou Engel's right-hand woman, and she talked about the DC Million Women March. So if you missed yesterday's episode, go back and listen to it. But I'm excited to talk with Jenifer today because not only have I had some wonderful experiences with her already, literally Jesus moments, she is an expert, if you will, if I can use that phrase, but she's passionate about the sex trafficking industry and helping women and protecting women and healing women, and this is her lane. And because this is a topic that is so widespread, it's a prolific problem in our culture, and parents are, I think, low key, we constantly feel the concern of it, and we want to know how to protect our kids. We want to know, if you're single, if you're a woman and you like to travel, you want to know how to protect yourself and what things to look for. So these are all some of the reasons I'm having Jenifer on the show today. So Jen, thanks for being here with me.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you, Jen. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast.
Absolutely. Now you guys have to know this as well. Jen is also in the middle of starting a podcast, and I've been helping her get it going, and we just had some wonderful moments together. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Jen before we dive in so you understand the full weight she's bringing to the table. She's a licensed social worker and a counselor. She's a Kingdom Life coach and mentor. She's an international speaker, an Airbnb expert, and a revivalist. She does a lot of things, and she brings fire to it all. And so between her having been a speaker with over 8 years of experience, she's also a trauma-informed counselor, and she works with people who have been through some really traumatizing situations as her full-time job. She's worked in the anti-human trafficking industry for the past 4 years and has joined international missions trips to support this cause. She is, if you're looking to travel, an Airbnb host, a 5-star Airbnb host, and she provides awareness about human trafficking in the hospitality business. So it's super cool. She has set up her Airbnb to be a type of safe haven. So if women are traveling alone, they can book her Airbnb and know that they'll be safe. They're going to find peace. There are no men that are booking at her place. And so I love how she's brought that into the hospitality industry. So she loves to spread her wings and travel around the world, as you'll hear about in this. She loves visiting coffee shops and making unforgettable memories with friends and family. So I have to speak to the coffee shops thing. So when we went to DC, me and Jen recently, we arrived at different times and we shared the hotel room, and I had booked it though. So she couldn't actually get into the hotel room. It was Gallaudet University, which is the only university for non-hearing folks. And so she got there, but she couldn't get in. So already, before she even got her suitcases into the hotel room, she had already gone and found Union Market in DC, which was very close by and had a fabulous coffee shop. So when she says she loves coffee shops, she's not lying.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay, so now that you're introduced, let's tell people a little bit how we met because this is just kind of fun. So you share your version, I'll share my version, and we'll dive into all this
Yes,
stuff.
I love sharing that. Yes, yes. So we actually met through a Facebook group about need a guest for a podcast. And you put up a post about looking for guests for your podcast. And I was able to share and connect with you about, hey, I'm interested in, being in one of your episodes. And I share my expertise. And all of a sudden, we had this phone conversation. We set up a phone conversation, and it was funny how God just worked because, come to find out, you were planning to come to Dallas for a conference that you
Uh-huh.
were attending to serve there. And come to find out, I also have Airbnb in the DFW area. And I was like, hey, you're welcome to come and stay with me. Like, I would love to host you. And literally, that was just like a God divine connection instantly.
Mhm.
And I loved hosting you and meeting with you. And then ever since then, we've just been connected. Now we have traveled to Washington, D.C. to Million Woman, and ever since then, we've just been connected. So
Yes.
I love how God just orchestrate everything, and we're doing a book club about learning how to build our kingdom business, which is so fun, and learning so much together and praying together and just supporting each other and being each other's cheerleader. Be excited, not be in the sense of competition, but just be
Yeah.
like, hey, there's room for everyone to elevate and build a kingdom business that God is calling you to build. And I just love how our friendship is flourishing.
Yes, I agree. You said that so perfectly. Yeah, whenever we got on that call, I had just gotten off of a call with Summer Day where she invited me to come do the interviews at her event. The next call was Jenifer, and I had told Summer, I said, "Summer, I would love to come," but I was like, "Jesus, you gotta do a thing." And so sure enough, I told her, I said, "Listen, if the Lord lines out some details that need to be lined out for me to come, I will come." And so the very next call was Jenifer offering to cover my housing and have me there, and I was like, "Okay, Jesus, I hear you." So it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was fabulous. But we wanna dive into this area that you love and are passionate about and feel called to, which is sex trafficking. And I want to get into this because while it's a heavy topic and it's hard to hear about, it's hard to think about, it's hard to realize that it's a reality in our world. That's why we have to talk about it because it is a reality in our world. And you see the impact of this industry every day working with the victims that you work with. And so, give us a little glimpse. And I want to talk about Paris and I want to talk a little bit about DC, but give my listeners a little glimpse of what you maybe do with people on a daily basis, what your job looks like, and how sex trafficking is something that, like, how big of a problem is it? Is it something that is really around the corner like they say that it is, or is it, just in big cities? Like, tell us a little bit of the backstory.
Yes, definitely. And for sure, this is a topic that needs to be spoken out more so that way there can be awareness, especially with parents that have children.
Mm,
Sex trafficking is happening everywhere. It's literally happening. It can be in your backyard, or it can be someone that is working at Walmart, a cashier, or at Starbucks. It literally can be anyone, because it just means sexual exploitation. It's someone being forced out of their own will to be able to sell their body, for shelter, for water, for food. Even like there's drug trafficking as well.
mm,
And the youth, especially I work with youth in this population who are up to the age of 22 and working at the DFW area, serving youth to be able to fill in the gap so that way there's a reduction in the trafficking industry. So we provide a safe place for them. We provide food, shelter, and laundry and rest. And within that time frame, we are able to help them look for shelter, for transitional living programs, and also to find an advocate, a mentor to help them walk in their life of freedom if they decide to leave the life. There's a lot of fear when someone is trying to get out of trafficking because there's a lot of fear of like, their life and their family and children if they have. Um, and the way that happens too is it can just happen in every way. Most of them is about romantic relationships.
mm,
Most people think like, oh, it's kidnapping and like the movie Taken.
mm,
They're just being going out and being taken and kidnapped in a van. And it's like, that's actually one of the least ways it happens. The
mm.
most that it happens is in romantic relationships.
Wow.
It could be meeting the person online or social media or online dating apps and be like, "Hey, like, this is guy that is trying to pursue you." And the traffickers, they look for vulnerable victims. They look for victims that are they're having a hard time. They sense the low self-esteem. They sense the longing for love. They sense the longing of being approved and accepted. And it's a way of trying to lure them in, gain their trust, giving them false promises of marriage or a job. If someone is looking for a job and they're undocumented, that's the way of them taking advantage of, hey, I have this job in another country or another
Yeah.
place. Like, um, is a waitress job, and the next you know, it's a dancing job. It's a place for them to be trafficked. And especially also like in romance relationships, they can be telling them like, "Hey, let's get married." And especially if the girl or even man get trafficked. Let's normalize that. Like it's not just
Wow.
women, but also men and
Wow.
children. So it's they lure them in and saying like, "Oh, no one understands you. I am. I can give you the world. You can trust me."
Yeah.
Then that's how youth even run away from their homes. They run away from, especially if they're having problems with the parents and family, and there's an abusive environment. That's a high risk for them to be in traffic.
Mm.
And social media, it's a big thing nowadays. Social media, especially if youth and children are having exposed to that, just being careful on the strangers that DMs and messages and in the trafficking, it just increases because the demand increases, right? And the root of that is pornography.
Yeah.
Pornography is definitely is the main root of human trafficking increasing. And unfortunately, one of the top 3 states of human trafficking in the US is Texas, California, and New York.
Wow.
And it's like, no, it's not just happening outside and overseas, it's happening right where we are.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So you said so much, and I have so many questions now. But let's first visit the topic of you going to Paris during the Olympics because it is
Mhm.
connected. And so you guys may have all watched the Olympics in the summer. I think it was running through July and August or something like that. And I watched a good portion of it. And there was all these nations, of course, show up in this huge, massive, beautiful, wonderful city I hope to go to one day. Maybe with you, Jenifer. Maybe we could
Yes,
go
let's go to
together.
Paris.
And so, but I never thought about the fact that trafficking could be happening during that time, that it would attract traffickers. But you went on a missions trip to help with all of that. So, why don't you tell us a little bit? What did you do in Paris, and why was it, or how was it focused on trafficking? What did you guys do?
Yes, definitely. So I was able to go to Paris during the Olympic Games because during the Olympic Games, especially when there's a high game event like the Super Bowl. And so the Olympic Games is like it increases the trafficking. Why? Because there's a lot of traveling going and exchange that is happening during that time. So I was able to lead a missionary team to the red
Mhm,
light district. Where Moulin Rouge is, and
mhm,
which is all the strip clubs are, the bars, and we were able to go and minister to men and women, even in the sex shops, to be
mhm.
able to minister to them, to minister about the love of Jesus and talk about trafficking,
Wow.
and give them resources as well if they decide to live the life. Um, so I was able to train a team. We were able to go on boots on the ground and be able to pray and intercede and be the
Wow.
light in the darkness. And that's definitely one of my passions is to provide a way out for the girls and women and men that are feeling captivity and they feel like this is their destiny, this is their life. And then like, no, like this is a way out. God does not want you to be in captivity. And of course we pray, we intercede for the Lord's covering. And it's amazing how God just gives us the grace to walk in those darkest places that probably
Mhm.
people don't really want to go,
Yeah.
because it feels intimidating. It feels like very like, oh, risk of, meeting other traffickers or pimps. But there's always a covering when I go into this field.
Mm.
And so it was just life changing for me because it was my first time leading a missionary team.
Oh, you led
Um,
the trip?
yes, it was
Wow.
like leading a team
How big was the team?
it was just me and 2 other missionaries.
Oh, okay.
So we were able to, like, come together and pray and really go and be Holy Spirit led, like, where God
Yeah.
you want us to go, which bar, which, strip club you want us to go into, and it will be, like, divine connections. Like, when I tell you there was salvations that were happening in the strip club, in the sex shop, like meeting people outside of the sex shop, and we were evangelizing and
Wow.
sharing the love of Jesus and people repenting,
Wow.
even like men repenting from
Wow.
infidelity with their wives, like, and it was just so rewarding to see, like, wow, God, like we were just plowing the land, and
Wow.
God, you met us there.
Okay, so share with us a story. What was one of your favorite encounters where the Lord just stepped in and someone's life was changed? Share a little story.
Yes, like when the time we went, during while we were doing the red light district outreach, the Lord led us to minister to men
Really?
more than women. And there was one man that actually approached us. And he started talking to us, and good thing one of my, missionary, she spoke French, so she was able to translate for us.
Mm.
And she was speaking to this man, and we were able to pray for him, and at first, he was not, like, open about Jesus, but as we continued to minister to him and she was able to minister to him, all of a sudden, there was a shift, and he was expressing how he was cheating on his wife
Mm.
while he was there, and he was able to repent and be able to receive Jesus as his Lord and
Wow.
Savior and pray for him. So that was also a shift that
Wow.
happened,
Wow.
just to witness that God is also after his sons and
Yeah.
not just his daughters that are in this industry, but be able to experience his love and his redemption and full
Yeah.
restoration that God can do all things new when we say yes to him.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, so then talk to me. Let's go back to the idea of the sex trafficking, which obviously we could have a whole episode around the Olympics in Paris. I did watch it and I wanted to be there so badly. But it brings up a few questions for me about sex trafficking and what it looks like because you've even mentioned there's a number of ways that it happens. And I know from personal experience, I'll share two, and then maybe that can help steer some of the stuff we dive into. So one was one of my son's friend's sister. So this happened probably when she was maybe around 8th grade, freshman, and she was on Instagram regularly, just posting little pictures of her and her girlfriends and whatever. And she's a cute little girl. And then all I know is a number of months in, her parents had to call the FBI and all this kind of stuff because I guess there was a predator in her inbox who was like grooming her. But she was young, and so she was naive and didn't fully understand or grasp what was happening. So I don't know the details around the red flags that mom and dad caught on to, but I'm so grateful that they did. And so they got her off of the internet, they called the FBI, all this stuff. Another incident was my sister, who this happened in her 30s, maybe even close to 40. And she's single, lives in California. And she was getting gas one day at the gas station, and this guy had pulled up at another pump in an unmarked vehicle, red flag. And he comes over and he starts talking to her and he was like, "Hey, why don't we meet up for dinner sometime?" And she was like, okay, somewhere public, and so she went ahead and met up with him. And over the course of dinner, he's asking her, he was like, "I'd love to bring you with me to this event." And he was like, "All you have to do is just like talk to people." And so he was essentially trying to bring her to I don't know what you would call it, but it sounded like a networking event where she becomes a conversationalist and then eventually is essentially paid to be a conversationalist with these men, like a companion. And as she could kind of hear what was happening, or what as it was kind of unfolding what he was describing, she was like, "Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. No thanks." And he leans forward and he kept being persistent. And then finally he was like, "No one says no to me." Like, he was very strong. And so that's when she started kind of panicking on the inside. And she was like, "I need to get out of here." And so I think she went to the bathroom and slipped out or did something. But anyways, he had her phone number. She'd given him her business card, which was dumb because then he had her phone number, her address, all this information. So she changed her number. She called the police, but the police didn't do anything about it because they were like, "Well, we can't do anything unless the law's been broken," which is dumb. It's like, by the time the law's broken, she's the victim. Like, what the
Right,
heck?
right.
And so talk to us about that, because between both of those, one is a young, vulnerable girl on social media. Another is a grown freaking woman, who is in the dating season of her life. And upon presentation, the situation he was inviting her into didn't sound totally awful. it sounded palatable. Maybe it kinda makes you go, "Really? People do that? Okay, that's weird," but for someone, if they were desperate, looking to make money, it would have sounded like a really great situation. And so talk about those, like, 'cause, and other maybe situations people might accidentally find themselves in.
Yeah, those are two great examples of how traffickers lure their victims. Um, you can see from the young girl, she was on social media and the perpetrator was direct messaging her. Uh, that's something grooming her. So it's definitely a way of how traffickers lure their victims in social media. And that's also one of the ways they do that.
Real
It's
real quick, before we keep going, I just realized not everybody listening may understand the terms that we're using. Can you define grooming? I know I used that word, but can you define it?
Yes, grooming for sure. So grooming is a process of, let's say you, the trafficker sees you as a victim and sees you, okay, I want to traffic you. I want to get you into my side. So what first is like they start a relationship. They start gaining your trust. They start buying you gifts, spoil you and treat you like a queen, like a princess, and um, say all the good things that you want to hear, right? And
Yeah.
pursue you and persuade you, and persuade you in a way that you will try and you will learn how to trust this person. You see this person like, wow, like I can trust him, I can tell him anything, and he just serves me good. Nobody understands me as he does.
Mhm.
So it's like a grooming process of luring you into like a spider web. Let's say
Takes
that.
time,
It
right?
it takes time, it takes, dedication, to really be able to invest in this person so that way this person falls in love, falls into this trust and trusted relationship. And then once you into that bondage, um, there's a shift that happens. Like he starts introducing you to like doing some type of work that you don't feel comfortable with. For example, oh, the rent is due and I don't have money. I don't have a job. Can you help me? In regards to helping me pay the bill, it's just one time. You can just do this one time. Um, and that's it. I just need it. And then next thing you know, it starts like that. And then it increases more and more about the favors. And then you be like, well, I love this person. I care about this person. Um, so I'm just gonna do it this time, and it just like pushes those boundaries and breaks those boundaries that you have.
And there's
Uh,
probably a lot of manipulation that comes in
mhm.
as well, or maybe even
Yes.
threats or control or
Threats, control, fear. Definitely, there is some a manipulation and gaslighting and making you think like you have the choice, but you don't really. They take away your choice
Mhm.
away. They take away your voice. Um,
So give
y-
examples of all these things because I feel like hearing those things is one thing, but hearing examples helps people kind of visualize what that could look like.
yeah, definitely. So, for example, um, I can say stories of, let's say, a girl is on an online dating app and she meets this guy. He looks so good, cute, attractive, has all the qualities that the woman likes. They go on dates, and then next thing you know, he's a very persuasive person. Starts sharing all these like, I want to get married, I want to go on have children, I'm ready for commitment, and all these things. And then next, of course, the woman is like falling into this person, falling in love. But then they just start and then they spoil you. They do your nails, your hair, get you nice. Let's go shopping for clothes. And you feel like a whole queen, like, oh, I've never been treated this way before. So I'm just gonna enjoy the moment. I just really feel like this is the one. Like I feel this is the one for me, like my husband. And next thing you know, and when you're having problems, there's like a shift, and their
Mhm.
target is to put you away from everybody, your family, your friends.
To
and they start
isolate.
controlling you and they isolate you and they start controlling your moves and going out with your friends and start being jealous.
Mm,
Start being jealous of like who you going out with, like, and then you're not being responsive to my messages. And um, they're the problem. You're not like come move in with me and come to move with me and we could start a life together and everything. And then next thing you know, okay, I'm gonna go because I feel like this is the relationship that I want. Went in, and then next thing you know, it will be like, oh, but I'm having a problem right now. I'm in debt, I'm in debt and I need to. Uh, can you help me in this? Like, I know this job, we go and um, you could get a lot of money, and persuading them like that in a way
mm,
that it makes them feel like, okay, like I care for this person. I'm willing to do anything, for
yeah.
him because I love him. And then going into this type of job, next thing you know, it's a strip club or a dancing job, or they can say, "Oh, it's a waitress job," and it's not a waitress job, it's something
Mm,
else. And then once they get into that, it puts like that job, quote unquote, and then they start blackmailing. Oh, I'm gonna
mhm,
tell your family, I'm gonna tell your children on
yeah.
what you're doing. And they feel trapped, they feel scared, and then it's already a trauma bond
Yeah.
that is connected with this person. Um, and you just even though they shift, they start becoming more controlling, and then physical abuse, emotional abuse starts. And then come to find out, there's been situations that the traffickers trafficking other women at the same time
Wow.
as they're pursuing this new victim.
Wow.
And they will be in shock because they had no idea this was a whole different person that they met because it's a whole mask.
Yeah. And
Um,
so what's the time frame? Because it feels like this is a very like long ball game, but at the same time I'd be like, if they're in a hurry to make money off of you, would they really take that long to do it?
Yeah, sometimes it will take us some time, and sometimes it's short, depends on each trafficker's agenda. But it does take some time because at the end of the day, they also have some other victims that they are also trafficking.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "We're gonna take our time with this one." You
Are we
know?
talking like 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 2 years? Like it
It
varies?
depends, it varies, it just varies, there's no, like, time
Mm,
frame specific, and it's also depending on the victim, if they're open,
yeah.
and they're vulnerable. So most of the vulnerable victims are those that are, going through a financial struggle, or they feeling lost or lonely and they longing for a relationship, or those that have been through foster care or domestic violence relationship, they are at high risk of trafficking.
Wow.
Um, it could be also the population of minors, being kicked out of homes,
Mm,
being there's problems with parents, and parents will kick them out, and they're in the streets, so now they're
yeah.
a high risk of being trafficked because they don't have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
So they're just luring around, just looking online on profiles. That's what they do. They do
Wow.
this all day. It's looking on social media, going around town and seeing and looking who is their target, who is their next victim. And it's unfortunate that it's just so heartbreaking that so many fall into the trap of being trafficked, and especially children as well that are just being
Mhm.
affected. And that's why it's so important. And I encourage parents to always be on the watch on what their children or their teens are doing on social media and their iPads and their phones,
Yeah.
because literally everything is there. And I heard stories of children being exposed to pornography while they're on YouTube Kids,
Yeah.
and it's like, you will think YouTube Kids, it's like, okay, it's only content for, like, kids, but it's like, no, it's just so sneaky
Mhm.
of how it just, it lures into,
Yeah.
targeting the children, to be exposed and to be groomed at an early age.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my sons, was exposed to pornography when he was, I think, 8 years old, 8 or 10, and it was from YouTube, and it was heartbreaking. We found out accidentally after it'd been a couple months, and I think it was just he heard some phrases, or I think it was anime cartoons that introduced some graphic content, and then it was words that they used that he then went and Googled, and that's how he actually found the harder stuff. And man, it was heartbreaking. I was so angry. I was like, stupid freaking YouTube nonsensors coming after my kids' innocence. I was like, I don't think so, devil, you know? And
Mhm.
so we walked with them, and we've told our boys like constantly. And I think this is probably important, even when it comes to whether your kid is encountering pornography or whether your kid is dealing with, is vulnerable to these kind of relationships, making sure that they know that talking about this stuff is okay with you,
Yes.
like ask these questions and we've made a rule from the very beginning, like questions about sex are never off limits. Always
Mhm.
come to us, always ask, and we make sure that our reactions are not a reaction that would make them feel uncomfortable for asking. Like we
Right.
always stay very chill, very calm, affirm the fact that they're asking, "Oh, that's a really good question, buddy. I'm glad you asked."
Mhm.
But we let them know this is a private kind of discussion. So you don't talk about these things with your friends. Just talk about them with me and dad, and we will talk with you very freely and openly if you ever have questions or whatever. But they need to know that it's not going to be off limits to talk to you, or that they won't be shamed for it, because that's
Mhm.
oftentimes what makes kids go and explore in other avenues, and I would think would make them more susceptible to trafficking, right?
Right. Exactly, and I agree. Just having that safe space for your children to have those type of conversations that instead of learning
Yeah.
from school or learning from their friends,
Mhm.
they can first learn it in their homes. So
Yeah.
that way there won't be any confusion or they'll be at high risk of
Yeah.
being a victim of a perpetrator or a trafficker.
Okay.
And I also encourage you, even the women travelers that travels by themselves,
Yeah.
and an incident happened to me when I first traveled to internationally for the first time to in Israel. I was so excited. I went to Israel by myself with a group trip and didn't meet people there until I actually got there. And I was at a hotel staying with the rest, and there was an incident that happened that I was asking for an iron because I didn't have an iron in my hotel room. So I went to the front desk and I told them, "Hey, like, can I borrow an iron?" And they were like, "Oh, all the irons are taken. So what you can do is I can call one of the workers that is in the cleaning room to come and get you, so that way you can go downstairs and iron the shirt because I wanted to iron a shirt for the next
Mhm.
day. I wanted to get ready."
Yeah.
So next thing you know, I was like, "Okay, that's fine." I didn't see it as a bad thing or anything. I was like, "Okay." So the worker came up and got me, and we went downstairs to where they do laundry for the
Mhm.
hotel and stuff. And then it was just me and him. And then come to find I was ironing my blouse, but he was staring at me so hard. Like I felt so uncomfortable there. And I
Yeah.
was like, let me just do this real quick so I can get it out of here.
Yeah.
Um, and then next thing you know, he came up to me and approached me, and he took my hand and started kissing it.
Ugh.
And I'm like, "What in the world is happening?" And then I just felt the Holy Spirit like, "Get out, run out of here." And then next thing you know, he started going in front of the door, uh, for me, like blocking the way. And literally, it was like God's like protection that I was able to go around him and leave the room. And then once I left the room, literally there was another staff worker coming, another man, um, coming together, and they were like waving for me to go with them. And I was like, oh no, I ran to the elevator. I was like, just pushing the button so I could go to my room again. I went to my room, I locked the doors, so it was just like I was like, "Man," like, in a place that I thought I would be safe in a hotel, right?
Mhm.
Even the hotel workers can be a trafficker, you
Yeah.
know? And I was like, just even thinking about all these ways of like, man, like, I almost about to be taken if I would have not ran or
Yeah.
left the room.
Yeah.
And and that's why the Airbnb that I do, I started it because it was like, I need to provide a safe place for women who travel,
Yeah.
a safe place. So that way they won't have this concern of, staying with other men or be able to feel that concern of safety,
Mhm.
uh, because trafficking happens even in the hotels,
Yeah.
even in the hospitality, in the Airbnbs. It happens, and I heard
Yeah.
stories about it. Um, so it's like those are the top things that needs to be spoken out more, and I know there's much more victims that have experienced some type similarity like this, but there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt that keeps people silent and not
Mhm.
be able to share what they have experienced so that way other people can know, like, wow, like this happens here too, like how what precautions I can do to help reduce that, you know?
Yeah, no kidding. So which does bring me to another question. First of all, I love that you were so creative as to create your Airbnb in a way that is a safe haven for women. And you and I have talked about, some of the things that you put in place, but correct me if I'm wrong, but one of them is that you just don't allow men to book, right?
Mhm. Yes, correct.
Right. So if
Yeah.
women are traveling, because you live there too, so you want to be safe as well.
Right, right. Safety precautions for myself too.
Yeah, exactly. So women are able to book it, but you make it clear on the page that like, hey, this is an anti-trafficking safe haven, whatever, right? How do you put that on there? What does that look like?
Yeah, so my listing is definitely it says even on the title, like females only.
Mhm,
Females only, and then it's a place and I call it the Father's house. And
mhm.
it's like a place that is the Lord prepares a room for his daughters to experience
Yeah,
his peace, his rest, his love, and feel rejuvenated and recharged once they leave to their next destination.
yeah.
And I very clearly put it on my listing, and I also don't do instant booking. I do request to book.
Mm,
So the person will need to request to book and I do a screening. I do a screening of like, what is your purpose of here? Like of
mhm,
visiting, where are you coming from?
mhm.
I would need a proof of your ID with your face on, you
Yeah.
know, because there's a lot of third party bookings in
Mhm,
Airbnb.
mhm.
It's like you're not sure if the person that's doing the instant booking is the person that's going to show up at the door.
Right.
It could be someone else, right? And seeing stories of prostitution happening in Airbnbs.
Mhm.
And it's so heartbreaking to see that. So I make sure, like, hey, like, please send me this information. Are
Yeah.
you in agreement with the house rules? Send me an emergency contact number because a lot of things can happen all along the way of travels, right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure you're safe. If you're not showing up on your check-in date, okay, like what's going on? What
Mhm.
happened?
Yeah.
And then I have your emergency contact. I can contact a person and see what's going on. And I also have your proof of ID because just
Yeah.
in case of an emergency, I have to contact law enforcement or anything. So I make sure everything is logistically like is safe and providing even a community of traveling women. When you're traveling by yourself, it's a great way to build friendships, build relationship with other
Yeah.
traveling women.
Yeah.
So it's like you can say hostel experiencing like living,
Mhm.
and I love it. I have met so many women even internationally that has come to the States for the first time. And that's also a high
Yeah.
risk when
Yeah.
person is already vulnerable of visiting the US for the first time. And
Yeah.
traffickers look for that. They be at
Yeah.
the airports,
Yeah. Yeah.
just to see like who's looking for a taxi, who's looking
Mhm.
for a cab. And they identify themselves like, oh, I'm a cab driver. Like I can take you where you need to go. And next thing you know, it's a trap. So it's
Yeah.
just like being very careful, and I encourage female travelers to be careful who you trust, even when you're traveling by yourself. Like, do not say you're by yourself.
That's true. That's smart.
Say like you're meeting a friend.
Mhm.
Later, yeah, I'm here with a friend and everything. And one of the things I always say is don't post on social media on real time
Ah.
because the location is there.
Mhm.
The location is there. You're showing pictures on real time of where you at, where you eating, even
Smart.
location, if you tag it, traffickers look for that too.
Yeah, that's true.
So try not to, and I know you want to post on real time, you want to show your friends and everything. And I know I've been there, but try not to post on real time. Even post like 2 or 3 days later
Yeah,
of
that's
where
good.
you, so that way it's just a safety precaution for yourself.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so let's get into our practicals because wow, time has flown. Okay, so real practicals then for both parents of children and then also single women or single people who might be traveling. I was thinking of some apps that parents can use. There are a couple of apps that I know of. What are some apps that you recommend for parents who want to closely monitor what their children are doing? But of course, we're not alpha and omega. We're not all the places, all the ways, And so, what are some apps they can use that really help?
Yes. So I recommend to give a time restriction on how long the child can be on the iPad or
Mhm.
phone. Uh, be Try to also monitor it. I know parents are busy doing their thing and work
Yeah.
and taking care of the home. But just having that time restriction is not just leave them there for hours.
Right.
Because I've seen that, like just to keep the child distracted while mom is cooking or while mom is doing some type of work or cleaning. And it's just like you don't know what is like, even like with the YouTube videos, it just keeps
Yeah.
rolling and there's
Yeah.
suggestions on the side that kind of like
Mhm.
creeps in.
That's how my son got
So
it. Yep.
yeah, just making sure on that. And also social media with Instagram and Facebook. Just, of course, everybody has their own parents' beliefs about how soon they can be on social media and everything. But the farther out, the better. I just think that it's just
Yeah.
out of protection and out of love. And of course, teens will be like, well, why mom, I can't have Instagram? But it's out of love,
Yeah.
out of protection. And especially if they see their other friends having
Mhm.
Instagram and social media and TikTok and having their own phone,
Yeah.
And I know parents that they will be like, no, like I could give you a flip phone if you
Yes.
want to contact me
Mhm.
for any emergencies for now. And it's okay. And it's like at some
Yeah.
point, of course, they're going to be frustrated, but once they grow up, they're going to know like
Mhm.
mom was taking care of me, my parents
Yeah.
were taking care of me. Uh,
100%.
just doing that logistics and keeping tabs. And there's also ways to find out like internet search. What are their browse history?
Mhm.
Just to check on what websites they have been, checking if see like if they have been in the pornography websites and all that. Just making
Yeah.
sure to even look at the internet browser history
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm.
And just even start having those type of conversations,
Yeah.
to your child right now about traffickers, because that's
Yeah.
something that needs to be spoken to them about.
Yeah.
What are the signs? Like, what happens if a stranger DMs you? Like, what are you gonna do?
Mhm.
Uh, who to share your personal information to, like, not to share your personal information, like where
Yeah.
you live, like don't, your address. So,
Yeah.
don't share those type of locations. And big one too, teens um, playing live stream on PlayStation and Xbox, that's a huge trafficking target there that
Wow.
traffickers are there to lure teens
Wow.
because they speak to strangers on
Mhm.
the live streams and that's another way of grooming that they
Yeah.
start.
That's true.
And so it's just being careful also with those live stream games that they do online or in PlayStation or in game systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for women who are being
Hold on, I
yes.
wanna mention though, for anyone who's looking for an app that will actually help, filter what's happening on their phone, there's an app called Bark, where if you install Bark, and I know this because I have friends that have used it, and I'm not sure if we've used it or not, but Bark is one that you can install, and it will scan their text messages, their social media content, websites. It scans all content that comes through their phone, and it will send a screenshot. It'll, if it detects something that speaks of suicide or seems like bullying or is sexual in nature or anything, it'll send a screenshot. It'll take a screenshot and send it right to the parent. So even if the child deletes it from their phone, you still have a screenshot of it. And so Bark is super, super good, especially for parents of daughters, but really for anyone, any kind of children, because they're all vulnerable. And then another one that we've used, for our boys with, like, keeping off, nasty content is it's called Covenant Eyes, and so it does kinda slow down your phone a little bit or drain the battery faster, so that's annoying, but it is worth it because you're protecting their eyes, and you're keeping them out of this industry by keeping them out of pornography, and so
That's
it's
good.
called Covenant Eyes. I think you can just go to covenanteyes.com or something, and so Bark is one, Covenant Eyes, And then when it also comes to knowing your neighborhood and knowing who lives around you, there's also a
Mhm.
website called neighborhoodwatchdog.com or .org, but you can just search it, Neighborhood Watchdog. And it's a map of all of these sexual predators that have been, like, they have that label on them from having gone through the court system. And so you can see if any of them live near a school, because they're not supposed to live within a certain radius of a school. You can see if any of them live on your street, live in your neighborhood, whatever, and you can see their picture. You can see what their indictment was for, like what their criminal proceeding was for. And so it allows you to see who's around you. So between Bark,
Mm.
Neighborhood Watchdog, and Covenant Eyes, those are some really good practical tools. I'll drop those links in the show notes as well.
Yes,
Go
those are
ahead.
so great.
What you were
Yeah.
saying about single women. Go ahead.
Yes, those are great. So for single women, those that are traveling by themselves, definitely encourage to even like at least one trusted friend that you can share your location in
Yeah.
Airbnb address just in case if things happen, even sharing your airline ticket just to make sure just at least one person knows where you're
Yeah.
going, when is your flight, and where's your Airbnb, where's your hotel.
Yeah.
And as well, like I mentioned, like not really posting on real time and not sharing with other people that you will meet at your destination, like you're by yourself. Share that you're going to be meeting with a friend and then also, or your family member or etc. But never share where you're located or
Mhm.
that you're by yourself. And at the same time, just really trust your gut instinct. Don't give the benefit of the doubt. Um, if you're feeling funny about
Say
something,
that again because women do this, and we've been
yes,
conditioned as good, kind Christian women to do
yes,
this, and I do this naturally, so do it again, say it again.
yes. Make sure you trust your gut instinct, right? Because if you're feeling funny and not peace about someone, please don't go with this person. Don't go in
Yeah,
the car. Like you could wait. You can
yeah,
order another Uber,
yeah,
right? You can order another Lyft. You don't
yeah,
have to say yes. And it's okay to say no. I don't
right,
feel comfortable with this. And don't don't go take the risk,
yeah,
right? Because it has been happening, like, women will feel this gut feeling like, "Oh, I don't feel good about it
mhm,
easy with this person. I don't feel
mhm,
peaceful. I'm still gonna say yes." But
yeah,
and then next thing you know, it's just
yeah.
consequences after that. So
I
it's
like
best to
I
just
like what you said, don't give the benefit of the doubt. Like,
yes,
with
do
your
not.
family members, yes, like family, people we live with, yes,
Yes.
we give the benefit of the doubt then, but with people you don't know, do not give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's the Holy Spirit within you saying
Yeah,
like, "No, mayday, mayday,
yeah,
danger, danger." Like, do not,
yeah,
do not go in forward. So just being careful with that as well, and just even looking at Airbnb reviews, and the host is the
mhm,
host in the house
yeah,
or is living outside of the property. And even received from my guests, like, once they saw I was a female, they felt comfortable, they felt more
mhm,
safe
yeah,
instead of seeing a male face on the profile. So that
yeah,
shows a lot,
yeah,
in regards to that. And then another thing as well that I forgot to mention for children, uh, trafficking within the children happens mostly with people that family members know.
mm,
Friends and it's like something to keep in mind as well. Like you can meet there's a family friend that you
yeah,
trust and it's like wow, like I can leave my kid with this person to babysit, but you really don't know what are their intentions about that.
yeah,
And that mostly also trafficking happens like that most of the time is because a family member knows this person and
yeah,
this person took advantage of the
yeah,
child
yeah,
while they were away or babysitting. And so it's just being mindful about that as well.
yeah,
And With the
We
single
always
women?
We
Yeah.
always ask our kids whenever they're gonna go stay the night somewhere, we always oftentimes we'll text the parent and we'll say, "Hey, if Ben's gonna come stay the night, can you just let me know, are there any other adults that are gonna be there? Is it just your family and your children?" And then we let them know, if there's anyone else staying the night or any other adults that are gonna be coming over, we'll pass on the sleepover. So we kinda let other parents know what our parameters are, because I have heard of so many friends who were molested by so and so's bigger brother's best friend, or the uncle's roommate, or you know what I mean? Like just someone that came over or stayed the night and they weren't even part of the family, but they were a trusted part of the family's community.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely, that's something to be aware and have your boundaries.
Yeah.
Like you set your boundaries, like, hey, if there's someone else in the home, I'm not going to allow my son to sleep over,
Yeah.
and that's a great way just to prevent that.
100%, 100%. Okay, so with all of that, we went look, we've already covered our time. I'm so sad because wanted to ask you all about DC. What are some real quick, and let's keep it super brief, but what are
Yes.
some maybe red flags that parents can teach their kids to watch for? Because a lot of times it's hard to know what to teach them without making them scared and paranoid of everybody. That's a bridge I had to cross. I was like, how do I teach my kids this without freaking them out? But at the same time, I'm a bad parent if I don't teach them what to look for. So I know we used to teach our kids to watch out for tricky people. We wouldn't call them bad people or whatever. We would say tricky people. And tricky people can be people that we know. They could be people at the church. They could be people that we are friends with. But here's what tricky people do: they will try to get you to keep secrets. They'll try to
Mhm.
get you to not tell your mom and dad something, or they'll ask you for help. Adults don't need to ask children for help. So there was a couple little guidelines we would teach them that would help them understand if someone's violating that. Oh, this is a tricky person. I just need to stay away. So what are maybe
Yeah.
some other little red flags we could teach our kids to watch for?
Yeah, that's really good points that you mentioned. Another point is if the person tries to touch their private parts,
Mm,
and that's something to even just go there. Like, don't be afraid to have these conversations
yeah.
with your child. Like, hey, if anyone tries to even touch you in your private part, like, please, like, you say no and you please tell me. Like,
Yeah.
there's no shame on that, there's no guilt on that.
Yeah.
And
Or
then
even
there's
at
a lot.
all. Like if someone's
Yeah.
trying to touch you, even just a hug, sometimes with some
Yes.
people you'll be uncomfortable. I used to always tell my kids, I would never force my child to hug someone to be
Mhm.
sweet. Never. I would say, "Nope, if you're not comfortable hugging them, that's okay. You don't have to touch them at all. And if you're uncomfortable, just don't let it happen. Like tell them no, thank
Right,
you." But yeah.
right. Say no, thank you. And because children can be afraid of telling mom and dad, like, hey, this person tried to do that because they have this fear of, are they going to believe me? Are
Mm,
they going to believe me
yeah.
because they already trust this person so much
Yeah.
that if I say something, are they really going to think I'm lying? And unfortunate, there has been situations that children have did an outcry and was not believed
Yeah.
and what they were saying. And it's like just even those little tactics of like having those conversations of, you know, your private area, please, if anyone tries, like, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so let us know. Now, you obviously do a lot of things. People might want to connect with you online. We didn't even talk about the mentorship that you do for people. I mean, like you do so many things. We could have had 3 episodes here. But give
It's
us
okay,
just
girl.
a brief rundown. If people want to connect with you, what are some of the services that you offer or some of the resources that you have that people can connect with?
Yes, definitely. So I'm a Kingdom Life coach working with single women to help break unhealthy toxic relationship cycles and prepare for their kingdom marriage. So if you want to connect with me, definitely you can shoot me an email for a free consultation call. And I also provided the links for the Airbnb listings. So if you want to visit the DFW area and stay at my Airbnb, I would love to host you as well. And I'm in the process, like Jen said in the beginning, of starting on my podcast. So, and stay tuned for that. And you can sign up on my email. And I have a free ebook for Kingdom Woman Guide for 8 Steps to Embrace Your Single Season. to combat loneliness and embrace your season of singleness. So you can also download that for free and stay connected with me from there.
And you had also mentioned like a free hour of coaching or something, a free coaching time?
Yes, free coaching session. So feel free as well to schedule that in the website on the link. Schedule a call for me with me and see from there and how we can work together.
Awesome. So as you guys can see, she's got a lot of offerings. I'll put them all in the show notes. If you want to go stay at her Airbnb, that's one. If you want to work with her, potentially in life coaching and helping you get free from toxic cycles and stuff from maybe trauma that you walked through or whatever, or maybe you've been trafficked and you're like, how do I recover my life? She's a wonderful person to talk to. And so with that free coaching, free hour of coaching, then you are going to definitely want to take advantage of that. And so her calendar link will be in the show notes. You can just get right on her calendar. And you guys make sure that if you want to follow her and be the first to find out when her podcast goes live, which she's very close, it's going live very soon. You're going to
Yes.
want to get in her email community. And if you do that, opt in for that free book, the free ebook she mentioned. And if you opt into that, that'll just get you into her community. That way you get updates whenever the show goes live. And so literally great ways to connect with her. I'm putting all those links in the show notes, so don't miss your opportunity to connect with Jen. So Jen, it was so good to have you.
Yes,
And
so good. Thank you, Jenifer, for inviting me. It was so fun.
100%. And so we didn't get to talk about DC a whole lot, but I loved being there with you. I loved being there with you, repenting for our nation, for
Yes.
the sex trafficking and the pornography problems and all that for the whole nation. It was just powerful. And so
Yes.
thanks for traveling with me.
Oh, you're welcome. I can't wait for other future traveling plans with us
I
together.
know, maybe Paris. So, all right, you guys. Well, thanks so much for listening and share this episode. If you know somebody that maybe has been affected by trafficking or they have children and they're like, what do I do to help protect my kids? Or maybe they're single and they're like, how do I navigate the dating landscape and do it safely? Or how do I travel and do it safely? You're going to want to connect with Jen. They're going to want to hear this episode. So make sure you share it with them. Send it to 3 friends. Just send it out to 3 friends. And you guys are the reason that my show is growing. It is a top 1% podcast in over 107 nations. And we are shooting my goal. I would love to hit it by New Year's, but we're
Yes,
working
let's
towards
do
it.
it.
But I would
Come
love to
on,
hit
God,
that
let's
top
go.
0.5%. That top
Yeah,
0.5%. We're only 2 points away from getting there. And so if you
come
guys share
on.
this out, that's part of how it grows and we climb the ranks on the global charts. So thanks you guys for being
Yes.
so supportive and giving feedback. When I hear from you, it is my paycheck. That is the one thing that fuels me in doing what I'm doing. And I know Jen will feel the same way as a podcaster. So we love you all. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. Listen, let's stay connected. Come follow me on Instagram at Java with Jen, where you can follow the latest and say hey. It's a really great way to stay in touch. Many of you have also asked how you can support the show. You can make donations through the Anchor app or on Patreon, or of course by sharing, rating, and reviewing on social media and iTunes as well. Your heartfelt feedback always reminds me why I do this. Also, don't miss our merch store where you can get super cool Java with Jen swag and coffee. Find it at javawithjenmerch.com. Until next time, remember, hearing God's voice is simple, and He wants to be a part of your everyday life. See you next week.